Hello, and welcome back to your weekly astrology transits, your astrological weather. This is Carrie, Astro Breeze, and we have a very interesting week. We have an interesting month. We have an interesting year. And this is kind of like being at the top of the roller coaster, about ready to go down. But there's only a few big things happening, only a few this week, but it's significant and they're kind of long lasting. So one of them is, well, we're just finishing the full moon in Leo, so we can see. Let me just go back. Let me go back to there for you. Okay, a couple of days ago. Okay, so over here on Sunday, we can see, but this is significant because we have the moon opposing all of this Aquarius, all the tribe here in Aquarius, and anybody that has planets in Leo, um, anywhere from, I mean, it's like the whole area. Look, from 3 degrees, so like give it an orb of zero, from like zero Leo to maybe like 25 Leo. It's like the whole sign basically can be affected by all of this, by all of these planets. Well, they're going to be opposing all Leos, and they're going to be squaring all Taurus. So if you have a lot of Taurus energy or Scorpio energy, this could be real rough. This Aquarian march through this, the inner planets kind of ganging through here. And they have been making their way through these signs. They've been I think it was like right around in Scorpio, they all came together. We looked at that a week or two ago, and then they made a pack in Sagittarius, and then they got a closer pack in Capricorn, and then it's growing ever more because now we have Pluto over there in Aquarius. Okay, so the pack is going to go into Pisces, but what we have, the interesting thing that we have going on is not only that, they're all going to pass over the North Node. So that's one thing. We'll get to that next month when they do that. But whoa, um, we have that they're all going into Pisces, but Mercury is going into Pisces. And that's kind of a very uncomfortable place for Mercury. So Mercury goes into Pisces on, let's see, it was earlier today in the seventh or late sixth, depending on where you are in the world. It's like flying. Look at 29. Let me just go an hour and it'll probably be there. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So late on the 6th, it will move at the end of the week on Friday. Mercury will go into Pisces. It'll be the first one to cross over the North Node, but let's wait to get there a second. Couple things about that. The let's see, the biggest thing is, Mercury makes 3 retrogrades a year, and it's retrograde for about 3 weeks. It doesn't ever get very far away from the sun. It only gets about 28 degrees away from the sun. So Mercury this year will be retrograde in all of the water signs. I'm going to go back over this in a moment, but I want to just point out this week. So Mercury retros in all of the water signs. So that's making us have to feel and instead of think logically so much. And it's going to retrograde in, the first one in Pisces, the second one in Cancer, and the third one in Scorpio. So the first one here in Pisces will be there a long time. So it's going to go into Pisces. It's stationary on the 25th, and then it turns retrograde on February 27th at 22 degrees Pisces. So right now we're at the beginning of February. We're at this like 5th, 6th, or the 3rd today. And at the end of the week, it's going to go into Pisces. You can see right here on the 6th. So by the end of the month, it will be all the way at 22 degrees. So it's going to go. And right now, well, I've got to kind of talk about a couple things. While it's going toward 22 degrees, is all what's going to be considered its shadow. It will be going over that period again. So pay attention to what is going on now, because these things in the news, these things that are coming out are going to repeat when it goes back through its shadow. So right now we have the drop files of all the Epstein files. People are going over all of that. And that's, I mean, there's plenty more, but that's just one thing off the top of my head. World news, lots of stuff today, but that's all going to be repeated and things coming out. So whatever's going to be coming this week, just keep that in little mental note. So it will turn direct on March 22nd. Okay, Mercury turns, I'm not going to go there at the second, we'll get there, but I just want you to mental note or write this down. So retro on February 27th, it turns direct March 22nd, and then April 10th, it's out of its shadow. Okay, let me back up. Okay, so it retrogrades 22 Pisces. It turns direct at 8 Pisces. Okay, so it goes back, it goes 22, it goes back over all that area, and then it's direct at 8, and then it's out of its shadow. That means that it will get out of all of that late degrees on April 10th. Okay, long time away. And it's funny, it's the same day that Mercury moves out of its shadow, Mars moves into Aries. It's just so funny how certain planets do certain things, but that's just crazy. So anyway, Mercury, a long time here in Pisces. So what is that all about? I wanted to go over that and then into the water signs too. Get my notes together for you. All right, so what we have, some of the themes coming up, we have Mercury, being in Pisces. So Mercury's the mind, communication, thinking style, it's information flow, it's your daily decisions. And Pisces is imagination and intuition, sensitivity, spirituality, dreams, sometimes confusion or escapism. So when Mercury travels through Pisces, collectively we get more intuition, but less linear thinking. We get stronger gut feelings and hunches. We get we can read between the lines rather than sticking to literal facts. We can read dreamy and imaginative. Um, Good for poetry, art, music, spiritual writing, channeling, journaling. And then our conversations with people naturally will drift into more emotional or mystical territory. Our empathy and sensitivity are highlighted. People may speak more softly, share more vulnerability, or feel more touched by words. So again, with putting song into words, putting feelings into words will be much more impacting. You might feel more tuned into what's not being said also. But there's also a potential for confusion and miscommunication. So just keep that in mind. There's always two sides to the coin. Details can get fuzzy, mistext, double bookings, unclear instructions. People may avoid direct confrontation too and tend to ghost you or ghost out rather than saying a hard truth. It's in Pisces. It doesn't want to do that. It wants to be sweet and spaced out and comfortable. So rumors, assumptions, and wishful thinking can distort reality. So we're in Aquarian Mercury. We're analytical, we're future focused, we're detached, we're idea driven, and we're going to be moving into more emotional, receptive, intuitive, and more fluid for what 8 weeks, 9 weeks. It's a while. So this our thinking can become less sharp, but it more soulful. So if you find yourself spacing out a bit, during this time until April, this could be a big part of it. You may care less about pure logic and more about what feels right or what your spirit needs. So right in the middle of the transit in March, Mercury is pretty much settled into Pisces. We got the pack coming in there, it's going to reinforce that. So mental energy may ebb and flow. Some days you may be like super inspired, really creative and really pulling in creative downloads. And then other days you might just be just flopped, just foggy, tired, spaced out. You might need extra rest or alone time. Things could get really like, where you're like, I just don't want to hear anything or anybody for a bit. I just got to quiet. Boundaries and communication can blur. Mm-hmm. You might be psychosomatically picking up moods from others, getting more empathic. It's a good time for meditation, for spiritual study, or energy work. Mercury slows down, and stations are very good around these weeks. So, when it's slowing down, you can expect again, tech or travel issues, um, lost items, missed messages, spacing out, during important calls, just not being there. And then water related issues, the whole Mercury retrogrades, we can maybe think about water related issues, leaks, floods, make sure that your bath and shower, plumbing, the weather, um, lots of rain. We have now lots of snow. We could have weird snow, water problems. So this is, definitely throughout the year, we have 3 periods of this, and one during hurricane season. So we have to watch for these. All right. What else I want to tell you about this? How do we work with this? So again, it's just, chilling, doing things by water, taking baths, long, Epsom salt baths, nice water types of therapy, foot baths, making sure that you're hydrated, neti pot in the nose, drinking, water with electrolytes and fluid, lemon, shilajit, minerals, so water can follow that. Be careful about signing contracts and making irreversible decisions when you feel foggy, assuming you just know what someone means, but ask clarifying questions too. Other things could be careful about over idealizing people or projects or situations, get some outside perspective. And then also be careful about numbing out with escapist habits like over drinking, binge watching, and avoidance. Some practical support could be double check times and addresses in important emails, proofread before you hit send, um, build in more quiet time to process things. And then when you're confused, write things down. I mean, it really helps anchor things that Piscean missed into form. When you put something on paper, you're pressing into that paper. You're actually putting it into form. That's not just writing, color or something. You're pressing and making a actual form with that. So that definitely grounds that energy. What else? So over the next couple of months, while we're going through this, you can expect that um, it's going to be just a little bit more of a spaced out time, a big spaced out time. There's also what else I'm going to tell you here. Um, we have not only spacing out there, but we have some really interesting squares coming up. So that's a big part about Mercury. So it's going to be there in the retrograde, and it's going to be a long time in Pisces. Now, the other thing this week, excuse me, is that we have all the planets starting with Venus as they get into the late degrees. Look at that's going fast too. It's hard to get in one degree. It's I get neurotic here about it, but I want you to see it because when I say it, you can actually see it perfectly. Okay, we're going to have a series of squares when all of these planets here that are in Aquarius go through 27 degrees. And it's, when they hit 27, because that's, Aquarius is a fixed sign, and they are going to be making a square over to Taurus. Over to Uranus and Taurus over here. It's another fixed sign. So Taurus just turned direct. And whenever planet turns direct or retrograde, it's stationary from our perspective. So it carries more weight. It's definitely carries more weight. Yeah. So we have Uranus stationary in the sky in Taurus. So it wants to be solid, and it wants to be secure, and it wants to be dealing with finances and being secure in its finances and being have everything lined up. It's putting all its ducks in a row. It wants things to be in order. It wants stability. It wants security with money, with land, with food, with resources. And, it wants us to be stable. And all the planets that are in um, Aquarius are focused on the future, innovation, community, tact, authenticity. It's more cerebral, experimental, freedom oriented. And it's like, Taurus is saying, look, we need food. We need to focus on food. And Aquarius is saying, yeah, but there's AI. So this square here is friction. It's like, I want things stable, familiar, material, secure, Taurus. And then Aquarius is like, I want radical change. I want freedom. I want a more authentic future. So each planet will activate this tension in a different part of life. All right. So not only do we have that, okay, so we have a few squares going on. You can see that Venus at 27 is going to be the first one. And then let's see. Actually, we already hit it. We had Mercury first. We'll hit it first. Let's go back. All right. Let's see. It's going to be obstinate. Okay, so it's like Thursday. So Mercury's the first one. Venus is the second one when it goes to 27, and then later we'll have the Sun. But Mercury, the first one, is like news, ideas, conversation, and then Venus will bring things about heart, relationships, money, and then the Sun will bring the event like a decision or identity. Let me go into more a little bit about this. So Mercury, what we're going to have later this week, and Uranus. So Mercury, shocking ideas, disruptive news, sudden news or conversation that changes your plans, breakthrough thinking, flashes of insight, genius, ideas, downloads, and then restless or nervous mental energy, maybe difficulty relaxing the mind, possible tech glitches, things just are like not booting up, not the internet not connecting, and plus we have some really intense solar flares, solar storms. Maybe what did Stefan Burns say recently? 10% chance of a Carrington effect. Uh-oh. So I've definitely had several disruptions myself on the internet. But anyway, glitches in communication, scheduling. You might double book or overbook or underbook or not book or have a busy schedule or no schedule. It could be just glitches. You could have unexpected, an email, text, or a call or something that alters your plans or your perspective on things. You might have to radically reframe how you think about money or security or your body, the Taurus things, because that's going to be squared by the Aquarius. Interest in unconventional ideas, right? We've got maybe alternate dress. You might want to dress different. You might have alternate finance. You might, crypto, we might be interested in learning more about that. Blockchain, how currency works, permaculture, maybe tech for Earth, because we're still in Taurus. How can we make farming technologically more superior? It's like I know, I'm an avid gardener and I grow and I garden in all kinds of ways, from sprouting to pots. They call them grow towers. They stack one pot on top of each other. I grow with those. I grow in the ground. I grow in containers. There's just no end. I think this is this experimentation in this area that we all need to deal with. Anyway, that's just one thing. So stay flexible, back up your tech, double check messages again before you hit send. Capture things in writing if you need to. This is great for brainstorming, innovation, problem solving, even though it's a bit chaotic. Okay, then when Venus hits Uranus, we get relationships and money shakeups. Desire for freedom and authenticity. Uranus um, is in Aquarius. Aquarius is that freedom, and we desire for freedom and authenticity versus, well, also sudden shifts. Like you could that whole Aquarian side could be with Venus, sudden shifts in attraction, alliances or friendships, maybe social circles, maybe different social media. maybe lighting up different parts of social media, maybe impulsive money moves or possessions or aesthetic choices, realizing that your values have changed and your life needs to catch up. So it can show up with like feeling restless in relationships. And it's not just love relationships, it could be all relationships. Maybe it's a period of redefining relationships, how you show up in a relationship, how people show up for you. Anything that's too stagnant or controlling is just going to get the axe for sure. So sudden connections with unusual things might be interesting, or different types of people, unexpected expenses or financial opportunities because it's Venus, changing styles, maybe beauty or creative direction, wanting to look different or create differently, to be more you. I play the bass. I think I'm finally going to look at some of my pedals. Okay. Give relationships room to breathe. Maybe avoid controlling dynamics. Avoid big impulsive type of money decisions unless you're very clear and grounded. Channel energy into creative experimentation, new social experiences, or updating your value system, like what you'll accept versus what you won't. And then the last one, we're going to get the sun squaring Uranus as well. So we have identity shock, right? Sun and Uranus, identity. We have sun is identity, and shock Uranus. We could have liberation. We could have plot twists. Um, it could have a strong urge to break free of constraints, maybe external events that push you to change directions. So it could be things like, your identity, who you identify with, ego, life path. I can't keep living like this. Tension versus, between comfort versus authenticity. It's like how real is something? Is it real, or is it, do you have to sit there and pretend? Is something, how about safety versus freedom? These axes are going to kind of show up. Maybe sudden changes around work or health. Maybe something is going to get you to change how you look at your health or your living situation or key roles that you play. Again, identity, finding um, the soul identity. The soul has no gender. We just have to be happy with who we are. All of the gender things that this is bringing up is like how, this identity with our parts of ourselves. There's always some part of your body that you don't like. I don't like my nose. I don't like my eyebrows. My legs are too fat. I don't like my boobs. My elbows are too bony. I don't like my cheekbones. That's like you could just go on and on and on with things. That's at the end of the day, we have to just be comfortable and happy with ourselves. Or change things. That's this, Sun versus Uranus coming through. So um, sudden changes can be coming up. We could be feeling wired or rebellious or unwilling to play old roles anymore. We could have a surprising opportunity, because we're programming that in, or a disruption, if you're ignoring that forces us to reinvent ourselves on some level. So best ways to work with it is like, where am I clinging to safety at the expense of my truth? Always when there's something against truth, there should WTF that. Be willing to update your story about who you are. Ground your nervous system, always ground. Make sure that you've got minerals, grounding pad, earthing shoes, body work, nature, salt lamps, having enough salt in your diet, resting. We tend to not rest as much. So you can respond consciously rather than knee jerk, impulsively. So putting it together, we have the mind gets jolted with Mercury, so new views, new, information, disruptive things. And then Venus, your heart and wallet could get jolted, changes in love, in money, in values. And then the sun, your identity and the life direction get jolted, and how you show up and what you do. So, oh boy, that's like a really big thing. And then again, Mercury going through the water signs, it's like on all our emotions and moods, memory and past, intuition and psychic sensitivity. It's all going to be the themes of this year. So basically, those are the big things this week. we have the moon moving through the Virgo and then Libra. We get some of the squares there with Libra and then into Scorpio. Doesn't like to be in Scorpio, but it's good for investigative work, and it's going to be part of that square, the big fixed squares as those planets are all squaring. The moon's going to come in, and exacerbate things a little bit. When it's in Scorpio, it's going to be making, when it goes through 27 degrees, it's going to be opposing Uranus. And then it's also going to be making the late squares. As soon as it goes in, it's going to square Pluto. And then halfway through, it's going to square Mars and then square over the sun and then square over Venus. So the end of the week, let's see, when does that go right in? Late Friday and into Saturday and Sunday, the whole time, that we got into Sunday, it's halfway through and into Monday. Yep. So by the time we're next week, the moon will have just finished its squares. So we can anticipate the moon to be some triggers of some things coming up. Maybe we're going to see, this events will happen. We got some things squaring off to Uranus. That is like electric. This isn't going to be an intense week. So just know that. Put a little salt on everything, yourself, others, because this is some intense times. What else did I want to tell you about this month? A couple of other things. All right, I told you about those squares. Okay, then of course, the February 20th, we have the big Saturn Neptune lineup. And basically this is like in orb right now. And, we're seeing Saturn here and Neptune, these planets. It's like the part where we can kind of rewrite how we want things to be. Isn't that kind of weird? Maybe going, putting the dream into motion. Our future selves coming back now to straighten things up. Writing how you want things to be, stating things in the positive. We're moving into this time where that is definitely going to be. We have several, I don't want to say timelines, could be timelines, several big alignments, I guess, for lack of a better word, happening at once. Lots of things coming in at the same time, and it's going to be a big week, and it's coming into a big month. We get this conjunction, and then we get into the retrograde season, and then all this stuff lines up. Oh, I know. One more thing I wanted to show you. Right at the end of, I think I showed you last time, but let me just go by weeks. Look, when Mercury finally moves out of Pisces. See, we're down here. I'm just going week by week, so it's going to stay relatively close. Let's see, near April 6th, my birthday. And then let's see, the 13th. Let's see, we got to go back days now. Okay. So here, let's see, it's what is it, the 15th here? There it is. Okay, Mercury, go back one day. Okay, so look at Mercury's 29 degrees, and look at this is interesting. And the moon is 20, it's sweeping up here. So the moon and Mercury will both change. Mercury will go into the next sign of Aries with the moon. This is crazy how that happens. And then Mars will have gone into Aries. Let me go back a couple days. There we go. Okay, so Mars goes into Aries. Mercury's just about done with Pisces, and it goes into, look at the moon going with it, sweeps, they go over, and there they are. There are moons already. Gosh, even a day. I have to go back hours. There it is. Interesting. Moon goes right over, right there. And it's rising over. Look at Mercury goes into Aries first, and then the moon goes right behind it. It kind of ushers it in there. It's just right there. And then this is what I want you to see. There we go. Let me move it down a little bit. Then we get this big pile up right here in Aries. Look at Mercury, Neptune, Moon, Mars, Saturn, Sun, and Chiron. So middle of April is, put this like down in your calendar too. This is going to be a very aggressive, intense, driven, pioneering. I don't know how you want to say it. Week. All of this lineup here. So these are some of the things we're coming into, and again, we'll unfold this as we go. But we're right. I feel on the top of that roller coaster, right about ready to go down. There's several things happening, and then just one more just thing here. Um, Again, we spread out. The planets, after that Aries pile up, the energy does dissipate. Look at how it starts to spread out. They don't, they move through Taurus and then into Gemini, and then it all starts to disperse out. They don't conglomerate like they did. Look at by May, all of them are spread out. We have stuff from Aquarius all the way over, of course, the moon, to Cancer. But anyway, how interesting how quickly things will change. I can keep going, but I'm going to stop here because it gets to be like real crazy. But just keep this in mind. For this week, we go into our Mercury retrograde season. It's going to be like a season. It's going to be like 3 months, while we have that. So intuitive Mercury, but confusion and kind of missing, doing wrong things logically. And then all of those squares to Uranus, things sudden. So, all right, that's it. More to follow. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.